Okay, so let's assemble this gear case. First things first, let's take a couple of pieces here and we're gonna put this in here first. Make sure that this screw is facing the flat part of this shaft. I'm not going to really tighten it too much right now. We just want to make sure that the screw's on that flat side of the shaft so it doesn't turn all over the place. We'll tighten it a little bit to make sure that we don't need to move that shaft around. So this will need a bushing here. Okay. And this will go in like so. So okay, and then on this side we have that little gear right there. There's a little indentation in the shaft that this gear is being tightened, the grub screw is being tightened onto. So now we have that in place. So let's go ahead and tighten this grub screw here. All right, so that's what we have so far. Okay. This is going to go on last, obviously, because that's going to cover this gear case at the bottom of the gear case. So the next thing we want to do is this is going to go here so it meshes. So we're going to need to bring this shaft in here. And that grub screw is going to go on that flat side right there. So okay. Before we do that, let's go ahead and put these two bushings in. That's one. Two. Now we can slide that in place. I'm sure there's probably an easier way to do this, but all right. So I want to make sure that the grub screw is lined up with that flat part of the shaft. And I'm also making sure that each side is equidistant, you know, from the ends here. So, all right. Now we can tighten this grub screw up. So you can see how that's going to work. Now, on each one of these sides, we're going to put these cups, and there's a hole on each side, so we can have access to that grub screw here and tighten it. So we want to turn this. There's a little indentation. I don't know if you can see that. That's where the grub screw is going to come into play. Okay. Got to make sure it's lined up. Okay, so there's that one. We got this other side. Again, there's that indentation right there. So we want to make sure that the grub screw is lined up with that. And it's also lined up with the hole right here, so we have access to it. Loosen this grub screw just a little bit. There we go. Now tighten it up. All right. So these aren't exactly even, so I'm just going to loosen this up just a little bit. To be able to push these. So I want this to be even on each side, and one side just a little bit sticking out, just a little further out than the other one. And the way that you adjust it is you loosen the grub screw here with this and just slide it in a little bit. So that's what we're going to do here. Loosen that grub screw. Loosen this one. Should be able to just slide in just a little tiny bit. Okay, there we go. Should loosen this one up a little bit too to make it come back in. All right, so now they're pretty even. This thing's nice and smooth. Very nice. So, got a couple of more gears. We put a bushing in there. We have this gear here that meshes with this. In the meantime, we'll put that in place. We can screw this down. I want to make sure that that's turning. Okay, then this goes in like this to mesh with that. This other bushing goes like so, and this cover will go on, but we need to put a motor in there. So bring in a new Magnum motor. I seem to have quite a few of these. These are pretty motors. Okay. Normally there'd be two wires that come in. and they'd slip in underneath this rubber piece that keeps the water out. So we're not going to wire this up, so it doesn't really matter, but put it in there just in case. So now as far as the motor is concerned, it's going to fit in like so. Take that out for a second. And we've got to line up the motor. There's little holes, little threaded holes in the motor here that we just need to line up. Now we screw this down. Don't want to over tighten because you don't want to strip the threads, but that looks really, really good. Just make sure that this cover is going to clear. So I used hex screws. All right, so now we look for the flat spot here. And that's where the scrub screw here is going to fit in. That's going to go like that, so we want to just take this out just a little so it meshes nicely right there. Now we can tighten up that little grub screw there. As soon as I figure out which Allen wrench to use. Okay, so it's a nice mesh we have going on right there. That bushing's going to go in that hole right there. Once we put this in place, everything should just snap right in once we have everything aligned, just like that. And we put these two screws here, one on each side. Let's tighten the other one first. Again, I don't like to over tighten, so I just tighten them up just snug. Okay. There you go. So I can hear the gears. I think we're good. If I didn't have the motor in place, the gears would go a lot smoother than they are right now, but I have the motor in place, so so there's a little bit of friction there because of the motor. So now that we have this done, we can get along with the rest of the buggy. There you go.